I'm ready. You ready, Susan? Okay, we're ready, Jack.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the February 12th, 2019 Board of Supervisors meeting. We will begin with item 30.
Item 30 is from the Office of Emergency Services to authorize the board chair to execute the First Amendment to Professional Services Agreement between Calaveras County and Tetra Tech Incorporated for the recovery of homeowners' insurance revenues associated with the Cal Recycle right of entry debris removal operations for an amount not to exceed $854,656.81 for the period of August 2nd, 2018 through June 30th, 2019.
Thank you. I had some questions on this. Do you want to speak to it first, or you want to preempt, or you want me to start asking?
You can go ahead and start asking.
All right, we'll start with the easy one. How did we end up not having this contract? We've been doing this work, and I thought it was, frankly, I thought we were done with this. So why don't you tell us what's not done?
So this contract bounced around from environmental management to to public works, and then around the end of May last year, it bounced to me. And at that time, I was not clear on where everything was. When I realized that we needed to do an amendment to extend the term of the contract in order to do the closeout activities required for this project, we determined that there was actually no contract, amendment 1 to then do an amendment 2. So this is amendment 1 to the original contract to extend the term through the end of this fiscal year.
Have we been being reimbursed by the federal government for this work?
I'm not sure about that. I haven't been submitting the claims out of my office for this.
Who's been submitting the claims?
The auditor's office has.
Can you tell me where the more than $6 million we've collected from insurance is currently at?
It's in an account locally. I don't know under what or key or any of that. Rebecca would have to answer that question.
Do you have any idea when the state of California is or federal government's going to come asking for their money?
Anecdotally, it has to do with how they process the information on their end when they're going to ask for the money. We've asked on a couple of occasions when they would, where can we write the check to? But they've told us to hold the money until they ask for the money. So I don't know when that is going to be.
Good to know. Nice revolving fund. We've got in this item it says we've negotiated a schedule with the contractor. The schedule wasn't in the packet. Can you tell me where we are with that?
Sure. So the initial contract did include a schedule. I neglected to make copies for the whole board, but this is the schedule that was originally negotiated in the original contract, which was a draft 6-month schedule for key project tasks, where it was prior to me coming on board and then taking ownership of this contract. I don't know what all was completed and what was on schedule and what was off schedule. I just know that when I took over the contract, we were at a point where we needed to start doing closeout activities to wrap it up.
I agree. When can I see a schedule that's going to show us how we're going to wrap this up? Assuming, because I thought it was wrapped, so now I think I need to see it in writing that it is wrapped.
Sure. So as soon as the board approves or disapproves of this contract, we can go through, I can contact Tetra Tech and have them put together the closeout schedule for this, and then what it's going to cost.
I would imagine Tetra Tech is going to try to get to the exact amount down to the 81 cents before they're done. I would really like to see the schedule and how we're going to close this program off before I would certainly support this activity. Is this something that would delay anything significantly if we push it back to the next regular scheduled board meeting?
Nope.
Okay, so we have a little bit of time to get this thing right, because I was quite surprised when I found out that this is the zombie project and won't go away. And I think a lot of people on this desk know how much I love this project.
I know.
Nothing like asking people who lost their house to cough up money 3.5 years later.
Right.
Somebody should probably ask what the statute of limitations are on this as well, because we're probably getting, and they may not be germane, and just skip that one. I don't think we want to ask. Those are my questions. Are there other questions from the board?
Yes, I do.
Supervisor Mills?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very curious about Object Code 5272, is what funds have been appropriated in that object code, or whether we are fully appropriated for the $844,656, or is it just a portion thereof? And how much money has been spent out to date? I think that follows along with his questions.
Sure.
As to just how far they've gone, because I'd like to know, here's the contract that started in what year? 26, yeah. And we're still here, and in reality, I'd like to know what has been their billing schedule and our payment schedule for the various pieces of the operation, and what percentage of completion, because the contract never spelled out in contracts, and I'm sure Gary's familiar with this, is percentage of completion equals percentage of payment.
That's right.
And yet, that never happened in this contract. So that's how they're getting their room to move the way they're moving right now. So I'd also like to see an end date, and that this board set an end date. We draw the line in the sand and say, look, everything has to be done and finished by this date, and we're not going to drag this till June 31st or June 30th. We're going to stop it right here, and y'all better bring in your paperwork and present it so we can get you billed out.
When part of the closeout activities is them transferring all of the data to us locally. Because right now, if you were to ask me something specific about any of these operations, I don't have the information. I'd have to go to them to try and get the information out of them, so.
Well, we own that data.
We own the data, which is
And
why
so
we
they should
need.
transfer it to us when we
Right,
want it.
right. So,
Exactly. That's a scary prospect, knowing that they have that data, it's our data, and I feel like it's almost being held hostage in this situation. So, and it's no reflection on you, Michelle.
No, no.
This is, you were.
This is another, fun piece that I've been
Right.
trying to sort out and clean up and move on from, so.
But
yeah,
that $6
no
million
hard
has me extremely disturbed as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to have that accounting.
I think we're happy to keep it, but I think they're going to come asking for it.
Right, they will come asking for it.
Supervisor Toffenali?
Well, my comments were the same as Dennis's. We own that data. We paid for it. That's
Right.
what this is for. And so,
Right.
and he is absolutely correct. Every billing they sent to us should have a percentage. Where are we? Indicating, we're at 90%, we're at 98%, or what have you. We need this accounting. I'd like to have it come back our next board meeting too, with all this pertinent information. So we can look at it and see exactly where we're at. Because I was under the impression too that it was done, it was over.
Right.
We thanked Sonny and sent him on his way.
Yeah.
Right.
So, we'll have some public comment, and we'll see what we want to do. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion or motion.
I would like to make a motion that we move this to the next available board meeting date to receive a full summary and accounting of the program, and that we then also will make a decision at that point as to what our end date will be.
I would second.
We have a motion by Supervisor Mills, and a second by Supervisor Toffenali. Madam Clerk, you have your finger up.
My question is, when you say the next available meeting date, do you mean
26th.
the 26th? Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. See you on the 26th.
All right, sounds good.
All right, we're at the regular agenda. Excuse me, we're on the second item, number 37.
Item 37 is from Public Works to accept contract work for the installation of the Blagan Road temporary bridge and authorize the board chair to sign associated notice of completion.
Morning, Chair, and good afternoon, Chair and members of the board. My name is Joshua Pack. I'm your Director of Public Works and Transportation. Please apologize for sitting down. I have 3 items. I figured I'd make myself comfortable. So this one that we're bringing here, item 37, is a request for notice of completion for the Blagan Road temporary bridge project with an emphasis on temporary. So the previous work on this project was done in 2017 as a response to the winter storms. It included a temporary bridge, approach roadways, and walkways on Blagan Road. That contract, a lot of the work was done on October 30th, 2017. However, over the next 7 to 9 months, we had some issues, several change orders, a couple outstanding items in the field that needed to be reconciled. The final amount of that work was done in late summer 2018 for a total cost of about $204,000. Now, that work's completed. We could have come to you a couple of months ago with a notice of completion. My concern in doing that before we had the permanent solution and the contract for that there would be confusion with the public that by approving this temporary bridge, that there would be some confusion that this was a permanent project and permanent fix, which it's not. And the subsequent item to this will be talking about the next steps in that particular project. However, this will close out this particular phase of the project. This is an important part of the FEMA reimbursement process, so that's why we're here today. And with that, we're recommending approval of the notice of completion, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have about this particular item.
Do you believe there'll be a problem getting any FEMA reimbursement this far down the road on this project?
Supervisor Callaway, I don't foresee anything. This is a project we've been vetting with them over time. It's not like we're going to pop an invoice on them that they're not expecting. We've talked about this option with them, so I don't see any issues with the reimbursement with that. So I don't, not at this stage.
So after we do the next item, which is the permanent, then this bridge is the county's bridge. We own that.
Yeah, and I can talk, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the subsequent project.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
you know, it is one of the options we'll be looking at is how that option of keeping the bridge in place with improvements weighs to other potential permanent options. And so, you know, our idea.
Whoa.
Back up.
Back up.
So you know, there is access right now. Our proposal is to look at different options to do that permanently. Does that include improving the bridge? What is likely is that the bridge will be removed and used for other purposes. So the bridge is a lease right now. So we're in the process of leasing it. That was set up a little over a year and a half ago. When that lease is over, we have the option to purchase the bridge for $1. And if we do make that purchase, we would have that bridge, and we don't use that bridge for Blagan. That bridge can be reused as a temporary bridge for other locations.
Okay, but you're not, maybe that should go with the next item, but you're not looking at one of the options being just keeping what's there and that be permanent?
Yeah, I'll talk, I think the next item is probably more appropriate unless the board would like more information. It is about the permanent project. So I'll be sure to touch on that as part of the subsequent report.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions on the board? Supervisor Mills?
Just to continue the conversation about the bridge, many counties have bridges, portable bridges or expandable bridges that are in their inventory. And I think one county has 7. So we have none and so the decision to purchase this bridge might be a good move in the long term simply because of the number of bridges we have and the vulnerability. I'm thinking about Dogtown Road, for instance. And there's 2 bridge locations there that even temporarily, there's still wood decks on those bridges. It wouldn't take much to take them out. So having this bridge in our inventory, to me, would be a very, very wise move.
I don't disagree. I will say in my previous jurisdiction, I had one temporary bridge, a Bailey Bridge, 1940s, World War II construction. We had it for 32 years and never used it. But it's one of those things that sometimes it's better to have and not use than not have it and need it. So your point is very well taken.
So did you want to give us $1?
I'll be glad to.
We're soliciting 20-cent donations from each of the
When we get to the next item, I suggest that we store it at your house, Marita.
The point being is that that bridge also could be leased to another county or another jurisdiction if necessary, if we find it they have a pressing need. If we had it available, just one more piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I agree.
Very expensive. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, public comment? Supervisor Callaway?
I move this item.
Let me do public comment real quick. Public comment? Seeing no public comment, bring it back to the board. Supervisor Callaway?
I move this item.
I'll second.
Moved by Supervisor Callaway, second by Supervisor Toffenelli. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Item 38 is from Public Works to award the RFP 18094022-925 for the Blagan Road Disaster Recovery Project Delivery Services to Mark Thomas, and authorize the board chair to execute a professional services agreement with Mark Thomas in an amount not to exceed $198,167 for the Blagan Road Project, PW 00130, for the period of February 13, 2019 through December 31st, 2020.
Josh?
Yep. Good afternoon, Chair and the Board. Joshua Pack, again, your Director of Public Works. So this is related to the permanent repairs to Blagan Road. As the Board will remember earlier this morning, we did do I did do a summary on this and other projects. This is one of the FEMA projects that we've identified, one of the 5 FEMA projects. So shortly upon my arrival as your new director, Public Works went out for a call for project or a call for consultant services for this for all 5 projects simultaneously. Unfortunately, Blagan and Murphy's, we received qualified bids for 3 of those, but Blagan and Murphy's, we didn't receive qualified proposals. So we went back to the drawing board. We reached out to our consultant community to figure out what we could do to make this more attractive to the consultant community. We went back out through another call for projects. The feedback we got was positive, that it was the time of the year that was and the time frame was it was difficult for them to put qualified proposals. But we did go back. We repackaged it, reissued it. We opened those in January 2019. That work includes everything from project design, environmental permitting, right-of-way, utility relocation, bid support, construction support, basically from cradle to grave. This will help restore the facilities to their prior conditions and also helps fund some of the additional hazardous mitigation that may be necessary to lesser the potential for future loss of infrastructure. Now, we did receive 4 proposals as part of this project. We had a team review those proposals, and as a result of that, Mark Thomas and Company was determined to be the most qualified, responsive, and responsible to perform all the work in an amount not to exceed $198,000. Now, funding for this project is budgeted through the 2017 winter storm budget. The county general fund is responsible for 6.25% of that. Speaking of Mark Thomas, they're highly qualified. They've done a lot of this work in the past. They've worked for the county before. I've worked professionally with them for nearly 2 decades, both as a public sector employee and as a sub-consultant when I worked in the consultant field. So a lot of experience with them. They're very well qualified. Part of the process, as we alluded to briefly, is early public outreach and alternatives analysis. So we need to early and quickly establish qualified and preferred alternatives at this location. That will go out to the public as part of a public meeting and to solicit feedback on those alternatives before determining a preferred alternative. Now, the approach with this bridge, like we will, or this location, like we will with Murphy's and the others, is to find a context-sensitive solution that meets the needs quickly, efficiently, at as low a cost as possible, with minimal risk to the county and to the public. So we'll be working on that goal. The ultimate goal is to deliver the project in 2019, and as such, we are recommending approval of the project. And the last thing regarding the existing bridge, due to it needs to remain an option, even if it's a poor option. We need to have the options on the table before when we present to the public. It's likely that alternative may come off the table, but as part of our analysis, there is access there right now. We do need to include that in the gamut of options that we present to the public. But like I said, it's likely an alternative that won't have much traction. But we'll know more about that when we do the analysis and actually present to the public. With that said, I have nothing else left to report. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Supervisor Callaway.
Yeah. As I read it, the contract with Mr. Thomas is from tomorrow to end of December 2020. But we want to have the project completed in 2019.
Yes.
So why, is it because he'll be consulting on the construction of it because he's doing the design?
Yeah, and Mark Thomas is about 2,000 employees. It's a large conglomerate.
Okay.
It's offices in Sacramento. But Supervisor Callaway, yeah, the goal, as I mentioned, my goal is to push things until I can no longer push. And with the eye that there are certain things that are out of my, that are out of our control, in particular federal regulatory agencies, things like the Army Corps of Engineers and Department of Fish and Wildlife. We're selecting alternatives that have the least exposure to that, but through my prior experience, even though I have considerable experience moving through that process, there is the possibility for that to occur. In addition, even with a project that's completed, there is closeout and et cetera that may leak into 2020, even if we deliver the project in 2019. Having someone cover that kind of worst case scenario, we could certainly amend that if necessary, but when I do contracts, usually I kind of cover the longest potential within reason. I don't go out to 2022 or 2023, but it minimizes the need for me to have to come back to you to do a contract amendment at a later date. So we could certainly amend that if there's concerns, and then if we go past that date, we can amend the date later on. But that's the reason that date's shown December, is just in the off chance, or in the chance that we hit snags that we aren't expecting, and that this project does extend in 2020, I don't have to come back to you with a contract amendment. And I will be providing regular reports, as you're already well familiar with, on the status of this and as we move forward. And like I said, my goal is to push, and then push a little more until it is physically impossible to make the 2019 schedule.
Okay, so my push to you is, at what point do you expect Mark Thomas et al. To be back with something that we can go out to bid for?
So, Supervisor Callaway, part of that will depend on the public outreach and the public meeting. My hope is to have some sort of public workshop up in the Murphys, in that area, so the public can see that, provide feedback. That would probably occur in the first couple of months. Ideally, we would have something set this summer and be in construction sometime mid to late summer. We do have a window. Once you hit October 15th, a lot of the permitting agencies don't allow you to be in creeks and waterways. So there is kind of a hard limit there. So this isn't a project, especially in that elevation, that's not a project we can be doing in January and February. But that drop dead date will be in the later part of the summer. But like I said, my goal is to have this to you, the board. And this will come to the board as part of a approval to solicit bids. That'll come to you ideally sometime in early to midsummer.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from the board? Public comment? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
I'll move this item,
A
Mr. Chair.
motion by Supervisor Callaway, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Toffenali. Call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Item 39 is from Public Works to award RFP 180940-21925 for the Murphys Drive Disaster Recovery Project Delivery Services to Dockin Engineering, and authorize the board chair to execute a professional services agreement with Dockin Engineering in an amount not to exceed $275,760 for the Murphys Drive project, PW 00489, for the period of February 13, 2019 through December 31st, 2020.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the board. Again, Joshua Pack, your Director of Public Works. This is similar to the previous one, so I'll hit more of the items that are, it has a similar time frame and structure to Blagan. However, there are a few differences that I'll bring to your attention. So, similar to Blagan, we did issue a request for proposals to solicit qualified bids. We did not get feedback on that or didn't receive any qualified bidders. We went back out to bid. We did get 4 bidders, and I neglected to mention that in my previous. We did get 4 qualified bids for both, or responses for both the previous project and this. Upon careful review, Dawkin was identified to be the most qualified, responsive, and responsible to perform the work for an amount not to exceed $276,000. There is some differences between this and Blagan. One of the things that I do want to highlight, where this number's a fair bit higher than the previous one, is there are some concerns with environmental and some geotech things that may cause considerable more effort than Blagan. Even though the projects are somewhat similar and somewhat geographically close, there are concerns. So the goal behind this is to come in considerably less than that, but this does include if worst case scenario occurs, that we have all the regulatory agencies that are engaging in this happen, that I'm hoping to avoid with a thoughtful approach. But with that said, I do want to provide that caveat that is the goal on that. And the goal for the other one too is if we're able to streamline this process, the goal is to come in considerably less. With that said, again, this is also funded through the 2017 winter storm budget. 6.25% is funded by the county general fund. The remaining is through FEMA and other reimbursables. Dawkin is extremely well qualified. Again, I've worked with them on a number of projects, similar projects to this. They've outperformed our expectations. Again, similar to what I mentioned on Blagan, this one requires extensive and early public outreach. And I do want to highlight there is a notable difference between Blagan and this. Blagan, while the bridge is not popular, there is limited access to the site. Murphy's, the site of the road is gone, and so there are concerns with secondary access. There are concerns with emergency ingress and egress. Between the two, whether if Blagan gets done first, we can look at an opportunity to reuse that bridge at this site, or if this one between the two, and it's not. This one, I think there's a greater need between the two, but not that both don't meet great needs, just that this one does provide some emergency ingress and egress in case of fires or other concerns, and the public has been vocal on that. I do want to reiterate and strongly empathize with these concerns. It's been 2 years now without secondary access, and I am fully committed to getting this done as quickly as possible. As I mentioned, the goal is to deliver later this year. A lot of the same struggles that may occur, and again, my thing is to push until I can't push anymore. You're going to hear that way too much from me, but we are going to do that. To that end, both this project and the project after, we've already scheduled project kickoff meetings for tomorrow and Thursday in anticipation of your approval. So that's just, instead of waiting, that's just a sign of we get these scheduled, so we start the day after the contract's executed. So the consultants know how to expedite projects. Dawkin in particular has expedited projects for me in the past, have done so very successfully. And so very confident in their abilities and our abilities to get this done as soon as possible. And with that said, I would recommend approval of this contract, and I'm here to answer any questions you have.
Yes, again, it's really a primary ingress, egress, not a secondary ingress, egress for people in Unit 15, as I keep getting reminded. And I guess I should have asked on the same. The monies quoted are really just for the design documents and so forth, not for the construction.
Yeah, that's correct, not for the construction. And part of that is also with the FEMA numbers. And Michelle talked to that a little bit in one of her slides about the number there and working with FEMA to get those adjusted. The FEMA numbers we're working with are the numbers on the original estimates. And so we can't revise those numbers with FEMA. And FEMA is amenable to making those changes as long as the changes represent for-kind or equal replacement. You can't take a river crossing and build a 500-foot bridge and ask FEMA to pay for that. But FEMA will reimburse you for like replacement. And they realize that sometimes your early estimates may change as you get into the project. So part of this process, the early process, is once we determine an alternative, reach out with FEMA with the new cost numbers and get those numbers amended so they better reflect the original cost. So it's likely that the actual project costs are going to go up. I don't know what those numbers are until I know what an alternative is, but we'll be working with FEMA as quickly as soon as we have those numbers. That's part of the process to get this constructed.
And the construction costs, the county will also be responsible for 6.25%?
That's correct. As far as I'm aware, it's 6.25%. It's similar to the design as well.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Toffenelli.
Yeah, the Murphy's Drive Bridge and the Blagan Bridge, what we're looking at is replacing the bridges that got destroyed. Even Murphy's was washed out in storm damage. So I'm taking it because there's a road on either side of it, that we're going to replace the bridges where the old ones were, or as close as we can.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the scope here, and it's calling for a right-of-way acquisition. Why is that in the scope?
That is a great and very astute point. And first of all, let me emphasize that what's not there currently, previously there wasn't bridges, it was culverts. So
It was culverts, it wasn't an actual bridge. Yeah.
There's a little, a little bit of and so one of the things with the federal government when you do these sort of projects, in particular after they've kind of ripened a little bit, is the Fed strings that come with it, or the money that comes with it, and depending on projects, they want you to perfect the right-of-way. And so part of the project, especially as we start looking at the potential impacts of upstream and downstream, if there are anything that we have to fix as part of this, those may likely involve right-of-way acquisition. Other projects, even if we own the road, and I won't get into long details on prescriptive right-of-way, but a lot of our older roads in the county, we don't own the underlying rights to the actual road. And so the federal government has concerns that if we don't perfect that right-of-way, and as a result, some member of the public could come in and claim property ownership. So the feds want you to do, again, this is why when you have emergencies, you got to fix them when they're emergencies, because you have to go along when you're this far along, you have to go along their process. And so the right-of-way as part of that is for the potential that the feds may say you need to perfect the right-of-way and purchase the underlying rights to that road. So my hope is that the right-of-way is minimal and almost non-existent, but I won't know that until I actually get into the final design of the culvert or bridge or whatever it is. We see the extent of that. And so again, this is where, the maximum not to exceed, it's likely it will come in significantly lower than that. But we need to plan for all contingencies. Otherwise, I'll come to you with 3 change orders and delaying the project for every little contingency that occurs. So that's why you see that number is higher than I like to see. But again, I think through some some thoughtful and intelligent planning, we can get that number way down.
Thank you. And you guys had this conversation on even roads, getting federal money or state money, trying to pave something if we don't own the rights underneath it. So, yeah. I just wanted to bring that out, why that's in there.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yeah, and it's a good point. It's something that we struggle with, and it's sometimes where federal money or grant money isn't necessarily free. There's strings that come with it, and we have to, when we're considering this grant money, we have to think about those strings and if they're worth it or hoops, and if it's worth it to jump through those hoops for the carrot at the end of the end of the stick.
Thank you, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else from the board? We'll open up public comment. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Is there a motion or further discussion?
I'd like to move this item, Mr. Chair.
Can you turn your mic on, Supervisor Galloway? What was that? I didn't hear you.
If I had a spitball, I'd like to move.
Mic's on.
I'd like to move this item, please.
I would second this for you.
Thank you, Supervisor Toffenelli.
Motion by Supervisor Callaway, second by Supervisor Toffenelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Nice job.
Thank you very much.
Keep pushing. Item 40.
Item 40 is from the Clerk of the Board of Supervisors to assign members of the Board of Supervisors as the representative and the alternate for the Calaveras Workforce Development Initiative Group for 2019. This is a group that Supervisor Oliveira was heavily involved with last year. The group has requested that the board consider making another appointment and an alternate to this group. It's the one that is developing, they're working with the local high schools to develop vocational training programs. And so they're looking for someone to be assigned and someone to be an alternate.
I recommend Supervisor Toffenelli.
All right, I think that's a second, huh?
Well, then the alternate would be Callaway.
No, it would be
And
Mr.
so that
Scott.
way I can always say, Maria, I'm busy.
Well, I'll tell you why, because of your experience in vocational and in trades, I think
would
you'd
accept
make a good
I would
representative.
I'll accept it. If you have the motion and the second.
The alternative?
No, no,
Good?
Mr. Stopper wants to be.
Good?
Yeah.
It's a good group.
It fits in with my little job training and also the economic development groups. No, this is very much something I'm interested in, so I'll definitely back you up.
Great. So,
I think he's a great choice. His background in his work and things
yeah,
he's done. Yeah.
I think it'd be great. Further comments from the board? Public comment? Bring it back, seeing none, bring it back to the board. Is there a motion?
I'll move the item.
Supervisor Mills is moving the item.
I'll second.
Supervisor Callaway is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. It's a really good, it's a good program. Good fair. Number 41, am I getting too fat going?
Considering it's my item, yeah. Okay, so item 41 is from the Clerk of the Board of Supervisors, the appointment of applicants to serve on various committees, commissions, advisory boards, and county service areas. So this is the next round. Our initial round of appointments was at the January 8th meeting. What you have before you is quite a few applications. So what I propose is that I go through them, read them off for you, and then if there's any that you would like to pull off to act upon separately, that we do so after we've completed the list. How's that sound?
So, Madam Clerk, if there's a choice between two, you want us to call it out during this process or afterwards?
You can, or I can, you can call it out during the list. Okay, so the first is for the Area 12 Agency on Aging Advisory Council. An application was received from Phil Sherwood, who was an incumbent, for a vacancy expiring 12/31/2021. He is the only application for this position. The next is for the Comanche Regional Park Advisory Board. One vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/2020 for a member at large from Calaveras County. An application has been received from Robert Van Bibber, who is currently serving as the incumbent. The next, Children and Families Commission, first 5. There are 2 vacancies. One is for a term expiring 12/31/21. Local school district representative, and an application has been received from Mike Chimenti as the incumbent. The next is a vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/21 for a Health and Human Services Agency alternate, and an application was received from Laura Larson, who is the incumbent. The next is for County Service Area 1, Rancho Calaveras Road Advisory Committee. One vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/22. An application was received from Kevin Ost, who is serving as an incumbent. The next, County Service Area 12, Golden Hills Road Advisory Committee. 2 vacancies, one for a term expiring 2022, and the application was received from Mark Godbout, who is an incumbent, and the other is for another term expiring 12/31/22. Ken Oliver has applied, and he is the incumbent. The next is for the Fish and Game Commission. We have one vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/2020 for a District 2 representative. We have 2 applications, one from Marianne Garamendi, the second from Karen Waldeer, who is the incumbent.
I will disclose that Marianne Garamendi is my aunt. I think most of you know her, and I would choose her for the board. I would choose her for the board. I do not believe there's a conflict or any reason to recuse myself.
Did you want an alternate?
There is no alternates for that group. Okay, so moving along, the Hardwood Advisory Committee. We have one vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/22 for a Farm Bureau representative. An application was received from Tim Follendorf, who is the incumbent. The next is for a vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/22 for a master gardener representative. An application has been received from Debbie Powell, who is the incumbent. The next is a vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/22 for a registered forester, and an application was received from Tim Tate, who is the incumbent. The next is a vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/22 for a general public member, and an application was received from Will Moore. The next is for the IHSS Advisory Committee, one vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/2020 for a general public representative. We have two applications, one from Wayne Gonzalez and one from Jennifer Priest, who is the incumbent.
I'd like to see Ms. Prius stay on.
That's fine.
Okay. The next is one vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/2019 for a past or present consumer. We have an application from Jeremy J.J. Benoit. The next is for the Law Library Board of Trustees, one vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/2019 for an attorney or a general public member. We have an application from Stephen Salente, who is the incumbent. The Library Commission has one vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/22, and an application was received from Celeste Bordner, who is the incumbent. The Mental Health Board has four vacancies, all expiring 12/31/2021, and they are for consumers or family members. We have applications from Aaron Miley, incumbent, Bill Sidorovich, incumbent, Rita Maxwell, incumbent, and Dawn Chason, incumbent. So four applications for four vacancies. The last is for the Public Educational and Governmental, or PEG, Television Commission. We have one vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/2020 for a District 3 representative, and an application from Pamela Quile, who is the incumbent. We have one vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/2022 for a representative of the Calaveras County Office of Education. We have an application from Scott Nanick, who is the incumbent. And we have one vacancy for a term expiring 12/31/2022 for a representative of the County Administrative Office, and an application was received from Krista Von Lotta.
Discussion vote from the board.
Well, there was previous concern about Ms. Von Lotta. I remember it being pulled. Has it been resolved?
Manning pulled it.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Mills, was it the concern about the availability? No, we had a discussion regarding that, and she is available to attend and participate.
Other questions? Supervisor Stopper. Supervisor Tupelo? Supervisor Callaway? Supervisor Moses-Gilman? Public comment? Bonnie?
Good afternoon. I'd just like to address some missed or wasted opportunities that you all have let go by. I think it's important to advertise and announce the vacancies. It might help recruit new membership. Each time this is done, maybe the public needs to know how many slots are available so that they could volunteer. And it would also help to maybe give a description of the program or the organization, and maybe an explanation of the duties of these committees to try help you recruit from your districts, or just have the public feel the need to step up and fill those vacancies. So that would just be my suggestion to help, because I know there's a lot of vacancies on a lot of committees, and if the community doesn't know what they're about or how many vacancies there are, you know, you're not going to get that many people stepping up. And also, when people do their presentations, I heard that we were not going to be doing public presentations. They were going to be done by a piece of paper. And I think people that step up, the volunteers, need to be recognized for the commitment and the time that's involved. And that would be another suggestion I'd like to make to all of you. Thank you.
Well,
Uh-oh. Vote quick before you get there.
I'm Will Moore from Rancho Calaveras, and I want to thank the board for considering my application for this Hardwood Advisory Committee. I think I've jumped the gun here a little bit, but anyhow, I grew up in Hardwood, Michigan, and the woods was the main economy around there, so I sort of have an interest in this. I don't know exactly what the Hardwood Advisory Committee is or does. I think it's a committee with no money and no power, but presumably its purpose is to advise the Board of Supervisors on matters related to the woods. And two things, I'm concerned, two things. One is this whole Blue Oak Forest is under threat of extinction. Another is it's a potential resource for economic reasons. There's a Blue Oak Forest running from the Tehachapi Mountains all the way up to the Oregon border, and I'm sure you've all driven through many miles of it. I don't know how many have noticed that it's all mature trees. There's thousands and thousands of acres of blue oaks out there where there's no young ones. And the reason for that is mainly fire suppression and cattle. These oaks have been evolving with fire for millions of years. I mean, fire is a part of their ecosystem, and if there's no fire, they stop producing acorns. And the Indians used to set the woods on fire to start the acorns. Plus, if there's no fire to burn the grass off, the acorns never reach the ground, so they never sprout. If the cattle eat the grass, the acorns sprout, but they eat the seedlings. So you know, if you've been driving around here, you see these dramatic oaks growing right out of a solid rock. Well, that's because that acorn fell in a rock pile and the cattle didn't get it. So it's, you know, kind of dramatic scenery. Anyhow, what I've noticed, well, you know, if you look at that oak up there, you can see that there's a double canopy. There's an outer canopy and there's a lot of small branches inside. Well, you could cut tons of firewood out of that oak without cutting down the tree. In a very short period of time, it would replenish itself. So that's a possibility of harvesting some wood out of this forest without destroying the forest. Plus, you know, if there are people out there that...
Thank you very much, Will.
Shut up. This time. Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
Would you like me to answer the questions from Ms. Newman?
Let me see if there's any further public comment. Is there any further public comment?
I like a lot of the things that this man said about the fire helping the oaks and the cows not helping the oaks. And one thing that really saddens me is along the road right-of-ways, they are clearing so well that what used to be habitat for a lot of different birds and animals are not there anymore, and it's getting worse every year. And it's really sad because I like cows and I like to eat meat, but I also like to see nature. And there doesn't seem to be, they're not allowing nature to happen when they cut down all the trees along the right-of-ways. And I know that there's a lot of issues with that, but this is one side of it. Thank you.
Is there other public comment after Tom? This is about the appointments process.
Yeah, I know. To echo a little bit of what Bonnie said about it, I agree that the outreach process is a bit weak, that only a handful of people who are local Calaveras policy wonks even notice or find the availability of committees to serve on. And also, Bonnie touched on, we're not given very clear understanding of our functions on some of the committees and how much opportunity there is for anything to be accomplished through those. And also, what she said, this is I agree with Bonnie's speech, I guess, to be able to present their findings in public so that the public, like here, so that other members of the public can hear what they've found and what our shortcomings are, and that members of the public could also, they'll be more aware of the committees that way, they'll be more aware of the work they do, and we'll be able to better gauge how much action the board takes based on the recommendations of the people on these committees, which would motivate people to want to do them. Because I look at some of the committee appointment, positions available and have to ask myself, how good a use of my time is that? How much is this really going to accomplish? How much are you going to listen to us? How much are you going to act on it? And we have it's hard to gauge because we don't see necessarily what they present versus how you act on it. And that's my comment. Thank you.
We'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. Excuse me. Last one. How about it?
I should have stood back there. House of Gallant Taxpayer Association. I agree with Bonnie and also the last speaker. It makes sense. Maybe have a web page on the county website that gives information about the committee, all the committees, and then when positions become available, put it in the paper. It might not have different results, but you couldn't be accused of not having an open government. Thank you.
That will close public comment and bring it back to the board. Madam Clerk, you had some.
I do. So I just wanted to follow up on some of the questions and the comments that were made. We have approximately somewhere between 300 and 400 volunteers on the various boards, committees, commissions that are appointed by the Board of Supervisors. We are required by law to do an annual notice of vacancy and to post it at the library. That is what we do. There's usually about 150 or more vacancies on that list. We provide, in addition to the list of vacancies, it does include a description of the group and what the positions are. Throughout the year, when the board makes appointments to these groups, I update the list and I post it right outside these board chamber doors where everybody walks by, post it in the lobby of my building, and there is a web page that has all of that information on it, and that is updated as soon as appointments are made. So there is, we only run a vacancy, a notice of vacancy in the newspaper when a vacancy occurs midterm. So something that was not included in an annual list is included in the newspaper. We're required by law to do that, and we do that as well. The last is, as far as the annual reports, in the last year, the board asked me to do a review of all of the committees and commissions, which I have been systematically going through. We have just a few left that to be presented to you. And we have asked these groups to provide an annual report no later than October of each calendar year. To date, we have received, I think, 3. So the purpose of the annual report was to find a way for these groups to actually advise the board on the things they're supposed to be advising about. If there was a need for an additional presentation or something like that, staff is always willing to work with these groups. Each group has a staff contact that is not necessarily the clerk of the board. But that is something that could be worked through as well. So I think that covers all of the questions.
Thank you very much. Further board comments? Supervisor Stopper?
Well, we would be honored to have you on the Hardwood Advisory Committee if it was only up to me. We'll let the rest of them decide.
Supervisor Mills, your lights on?
It's okay.
Okay. So, we've gone through the list. Do we have a motion?
I'll move we accept as proposed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Supervisor Stopper, seconded by Supervisor Toffenali. Is there any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Supervisor announcements. In compliance with AB 1234, chaptered as Government Code Section 53232.3D, board members shall provide brief reports on meetings they attended at the expense of the local agency at the next regular meeting of the legislative body. This report is required to include meetings attended for which there has been expense reimbursement, such as mileage, meals, lodging, etc., but may also, at the board member's discretion, include any other meeting attended by the supervisor on behalf of the county.
Supervisor Toffenali, would you like to start?
Well, as we always say, I didn't spend any money, the county's money, because we don't have a budget for it, but since our last meeting, I attended a Central Sierra Child Protection Agency meeting on the 28th. That evening, I also attended a LAFCO meeting. I met with Josh from Public Works concerning the CIP projects in District 1 on the 31st. I attended a COG meeting on the 6th and attended on the 7th Mountain Valley MS RFP planning meeting with Supervisor Mills. That's concerning the RFP going out for ambulance service in 2020. It was a very good meeting. We had a consultant there. We went over all of our concerns, what we thought were the benefits of what we are receiving now versus some of the downfalls that we've seen and had from public comments on it. That committee or that consultant was being taken around to different departments in the county and meeting with those departments to discuss some of those, their ideas on how it's working, along with the ambulance provider that we have right now, which is American Legion Post 108. And they'll be putting together that RFP here in the next several months, and I'll be reporting out as we start getting bits and pieces on that RFP, and then finally when we have it all together, I will be reporting out along with Supervisor Mills on that. He's on that committee also. I have a Mountain Valley EMS board meeting on the 13th at 9 a.m. I have a meeting with Jonathan Mitchell. Marina will know who Jonathan is, former Public Works engineer. I haven't seen him for a long time. He left back in 2012, 2013, back in that area. He called, haven't seen him since, and wanted to meet for coffee. So I'll be meeting with him in 1:30 on the 13th. I will be meeting with Chief Dickinson from Calco on the 14th at 9 a.m. at Common Grounds. And then I have a COG executive management meeting on the 15th at 9 a.m. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Stopper.
I had my first motherload job training meeting and introduction, met the other supervisors from the other counties, Mariposa, Amador, Tuolumne, that are all on it. I had a meeting with Joshua Pack. Unfortunately, our times could not coincide with Gary's time, so we were able to go over everything in District 5 that's on my radar and a few other things that he was able to bring up and bring to our attention. I've just met with Rich Dickinson last week and discussed things with Calco and, and I've met with a multitude of other department heads throughout the county over the last few weeks, and I'll leave it at that.
All right. Supervisor Mills.
Thank you. You mentioned a couple things, Gary, so we'll go over those again. There's going to be a ribbon cutting for the upper Stagecoach Bridge on the 21st at 2:30 at the site in Diamond 20. That bridge and the Harbor Bridge are the first two bridges that have been delivered in Calaveras County in the last 10 years. So it's a big deal. I've been working on an issue on Camp 9 Road. Everybody's familiar with the old cement facility out there and the amount of shooting that's been going on and junk cars and junk appliances and you name it. So we've been contacting the private property owners. Be aware that the facility Lehigh has for the cement plant is still an active mine site, which means you cannot be shooting on that property. And they have gone so far as to post 10 signs out there right now. They will be monitoring it on a random basis, and just everybody be aware. There's a heightened security system going on. I've asked BLM to remove the two cars that have been tossed over the bank at the overlook. As well as there's going to be somebody removing the travel trailer that burned last summer out there. And if anybody wants a boat, there's a boat out there. But we're working with the private property owners. It's an entirely private road, and getting that area resolved, including some volunteers that want to clean it up. Parrots Ferry Road, everybody's familiar with natural bridges. I just want you to be aware that the Bureau of Reclamation has said that 2 years ago their visitor use days was 54,000, and last year it was over 75,000. I just want to remind you there's one bathroom. Also, the parking problem is out there, as well as there's no facilities once you get to the bottom, which is nearly a mile walk down. So we'll be meeting with Murphy's Fire and other agencies to try to get this resolved. I'll be in Sacramento with Folsom with the Bureau this Friday, and to see if we can get some resolution to this rather quickly, because it is a health and safety issue. If you are going down there, I might remind you that it is known to be a tick area, and ticks in that area have been proven to carry Lyme disease. So please check yourself, mention it to your friends. Additionally, Calaveras and Tuolumne had been going through at least 2 meetings on developing a JPA on Lake Tulloch. And Tuolumne County has expressed an interest to do that. Tridem has expressed an interest to do that. And so that we can start thinking of this jointly in terms of how do we fund marine safety down there. The Sheriff's Department's been involved in it from both counties. Marine Safety's been involved in it from both counties. And it keeps coming back up to the Bass Lake plan, where they would be buying stickers to put on their boats and in essence trying to find a way to limit the amount of activity on the lake. It is a lake that currently is designed for only about 116 boats, but we have seen maxes as high as 180, and there have been deaths out there as a result of boating accidents. So I would ask this board, maybe in a poll, possibly Chair, to have staff continue to work with Tuolumne County, bring forward something as an agenda item that we can look at as a potential JPA, and we can start developing a funding mechanism so that we're not taking it out of our general fund consistently to fund marine safety out there, and also to develop some consistent policies between the counties. There was a recent attempt on the Green Springs finger in Tuolumne County to shut that off to boats. And that met with instant pushback, and I was in that meeting to say, no, you're not going to do that. And everybody is in agreement. So as long as there's a will and a desire for all of the agencies who are involved in Lake Tulloch to want to have that discussion, I would like to see it come back as an agenda item and staff to put together something that would be agreeable to both counties and Tridam, that we could start, because they're asking to have better control on marine safety.
Discussion on that?
I can't have a discussion.
I mean, excuse me, have a discussion on
No,
that.
can't discuss it.
Just a poll. Does anybody-
Right, no, I'm going to answer the poll.
Thank you.
I can support that.
Thank you.
Supervisor Toffenali?
I'm fine with it.
Supervisor Keller? I'm fine with it as well, so,
Thank you.
that direction, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Say good, Dennis?
That's it. Thank you.
Supervisor Callaway?
I too was at the LAFCO meeting. I went to a fundraiser for Blue Mountain Radio,
Good people.
and so I donated
Always
to
appreciate
your,
it.
yeah. They have this awesome radio station in West Point.
They do.
And it's Blue Mountain Radio, and so they, in fact, one of the people that headed it up used to cover the Board of Supervisors.
You're always welcome to come up and talk on the radio in West Point.
Yeah. I was elected chair of Area 12 Agency on Aging. I have CSAC, California State Association of Counties this week. This weekend, the Calaveras Wine Grape Alliance is having President's Weekend. So rain or shine or snow, please come and enjoy President's Weekend and support the wine industry in Calaveras. Like Ben, I've been meeting with all the departments and agencies that service District 3, and getting lots of snow questions. I really want to thank the road department for what they're doing under very difficult circumstances.
Thank you.
That's it.
Chair, I do have one more, and it just came to my attention. Remember, the Angels Murphy's Arnold Boosters is holding their crab feed at Frogtown this Saturday as well. So if you're interested in crab, I just offer that up.
Good stuff. Okay, I'll go. I think I explained to you guys that I'm on the executive committee of RCRC, and I'm chairing the Water and Resources Committee. It has been, and I mentioned that, I keep you appraised as legislation started coming forward. Lots of ideas are kicking around in the Senate and Assembly that are going to impact us. People are coming up with all kinds of ideas on how to deal with communities like ours that are in a high fire hazard. Some of them are really bad, all stop. Some of them we could work with. We're taking an approach with RCRC that they're going to drop something on us, so we're trying to help pick our poison. So that things that we could work with rather than some of the draconian ideas that people are coming. I'll keep you aware. We haven't, the legislation that is rumored hasn't surfaced yet, but we're keeping a very close eye on it, and I have a lot of faith in the staff at RCRC. It's a subcommittee put together with Tehama, Mono, Napa, and us. So we have weekly calls to monitor that legislation and prepare ourselves. So we're not just they're not doing it to us, but we're trying to use a little judo and see if we can make it work better. Meetings with UMRA, of course, Lions Club Enchilada Feed, West Point Crab Feed, First Five meeting, chamber event, Supervisor Mills there as well. Emmanuel and I had a very good meeting with the mayor and city manager at Angels Camp, which I guess is a regularly traditional thing to do. And it's always good to keep in touch with our neighbor municipalities. It's very pleasant, and Pickle Patch always puts on a nice sandwich. So I have nothing else to announce. Emmanuel?
I have nothing.
County Council? Madam Clerk? Supervisor Tovenelli?
Yes. I've been sitting here, and Will's still here, and his comment, when he came up, he had no idea what the Hardwood Advisory Committee does. And Maria can correct me if I'm wrong, because she was here, I believe it was 2007, they were created, and they were going to be an advisory to the Board of Supervisors and some element in the general plan as far as protecting hardwoods here in Calaveras. And they came forward and they did present the board with a document that they would like to have incorporated in the general plan. And they've met a few times since then. I don't think they're currently meeting maybe once or twice once a year right now. I wasn't sure if it was once or twice a year. But they will be coming forward again when we start getting back into the general plan. So you might get with Diane, Will, and get the members on that are active in that right now, and the chair, and get brought up to date with where they are, and maybe get that document so you can go through it and read it and be aware of what it says. But that was the whole reason for the Hardwood Advisory Committee, was to advise on the general plan, the board on the general plan, to preserve hardwoods here in Calaveras. Okay?
They've been meeting in November of each year, and Kevin Wright, the Ag Commissioner, is the staff contact.
And Will, I'm always happy to talk to you about the benefits of cattle on those acorns and growing. So on that, if there's no objection, we stand adjourned.